back, everybody. We are here at Fab24, the vibrant gathering of makers, innovators, and creative minds from around the world. I am Camila.
And I am Diego.
So we are really glad to be today with a great speaker. So today we have Dan Stone. 20 years of experience in the technology space. So Dan, it's an honor to have you here with us. So how are you doing today? What are your impressions of Fab24 so far?
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a great conference. So many great speakers and innovators, and just getting everybody's different perspectives coming from indigenous areas in Latin America to Shenzhen manufacturing hubs to schools everywhere. So it's been a lot of fun participating and just soaking it all in.
Okay, just to start, thank you so much. And I wanted to the first question of the first part of this. Tell us about your journey in tech. How do you get the interest in this, and how do you get influenced by your perspective in innovation and transformation?
Sure. So I'm from Israel originally, and so I grew up around all these startup mecca, and it was great growing up and seeing all that around me. I got out of the army and I got my degree in economics, and said, I'm going to go start a startup, and it was great, a lot of fun. We made some kind of a software with no business model and great ideas, and we even raised a little money, and then crashed and burned pretty quickly. And then I figured out I have no idea what I'm doing. And so said, let me go learn from other people that have been successful. And so I joined the consulting industry, and I worked with a company called Monitor, and then with a company called McKinsey, all across the Middle East, and then Europe and North America. And I always worked in tech, did all kinds of things, from supply chain to strategy to M&A. And eventually I transitioned to industry and became the chief strategy officer of Lenovo, the computer company, and spent first part of my time at Lenovo overseeing the strategy and M&A departments, mostly focused on the corporate strategy, and then on investments in startups, post-merger management of acquisitions, and really solving any problems that were on the CEO's or the board's agenda. And that led me actually transitioning to running Brazil. We moved my family to Sao Paulo and grew that business from about $300 million to $1.5 billion. And then I ran Latin America, which was about $3 billion. I had a lot of fun doing that and said, where else can I do this kind of turnaround work? And led me to working for private equity owned companies in North America. And so I've done, the last 10 years, I spent my time as a turnaround CEO. So when private equity invests in companies, and specifically IT services companies, and they get into trouble, I come in as a CEO and I fix them and I sell them. And so it's been a very rewarding time. I've done that a few times this last decade, and these days I really split my time between my own investment firm and 909 Street Associates, where we still advise people with distressed assets and help them thinking through transformation. And so that's a little bit of my career, and I think my view on innovation and transformation kind of comes from that transition of, love innovation, love technology. It drives everything. But I've spent years in this area, in the space of not necessarily transformative innovation as much as incremental innovation. It's like in the PC industry, right? You have innovation cycles around Microsoft, around the processors, releases, and you kind of want to make everything a little bit better. And so that type of incremental innovation is very powerful. It brings a very cost-effective technology and products to the mass market. It does require focus in the organization, okay? Because you don't want to just be a manufacturing company if you want to be an innovative manufacturing company. And I took a lot of that learning and that perspectives into services. And so when I led my own organization, try to instill the same kind of incremental innovation approach.
Oh my God, that's really interesting, and I love this journey. I think before we were talking and discussing about actually how we love to do different things as creators and as part of the Fab Labs, right? We see people doing a lot of different stuff all the time. So actually, it's really interesting, like experience and story. And I want to do a quick question before going to the next one, right? So you speak Portuguese or Spanish, or is it?
Só um pouquinho português.
That was great, actually.
Português?
Oh, no, I don't speak. But I was curious because we are quite close, so I was like, I don't know if you. Is your first time here in Mexico? We're at a
I
point.
used to run Latin America, so I used to run also Mexico for Lenovo, and so I've been to Mexico before. But when I moved to Latin America, I mean, I speak Hebrew and I speak English, and I didn't speak Spanish or Portuguese when I moved to Latin America. But after working there for 3 years, you pick up, and I took lessons. And so I can follow a lot of the conversations, but I don't speak very well.
Great, actually. So I'm really glad you're coming to here at Puebla. I think you're enjoying food again, Mexican food. I think is one of my favorite parts. But let's move to the next question, right?
Yeah, Dan, you have an amazing experience. You tell us it's amazing, all your process you pass, all the ideas you see and experiment, and how are you doing with your organization? And I have some question. What do you think are the values or principal things do you believe are essential for fostering culture of the innovation and a lot of organization? Because you have better experience than me in this case, but some organizations I think need more innovation. And do you say scaling this? It's a progress, not only one thing. I like the example of the processors because you need to always do better and never stop.
Well, I come from a big continuous improvement belief, so you have to break down the performance and drivers of your business. So you have an aspiration for the business, right? That's what your long-term goal. It could be the biggest company, it could be very profitable, it could be a number, whatever your aspiration is. And then you set a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year plan, whatever it is to reach that aspiration. And then you want to have a specific 1-year plan. And what is my plan? What are the metrics? What are the operating dynamics of my business? What are the things that drive my performance? And where do I want those metrics to be? And I'm very metric focused. You'll see that through our conversation. That's my manufacturing, I think, background. Bringing that continuous improvement means that when my metric is not the best, or I want to make it better, you have to be innovative at thinking, how do I make it better? So one, you have to understand why it's not working. And a lot of that is talking to people. Talking, whether it's in your factory and your employees, whether it's your customers, whether it's potential users, whether it's experts, it's talking to people and understanding, one is when I understand what I am now, and understanding what's working, what's not working, and then having the freedom to create and suggest new solutions, and then test them. And then test them in a way you can fail. So as a CEO, I think my role is typically to allow for, one is to make sure that muscle is built of like, okay, let me understand what's not working, let me try to change it, and let me measure it, see if I can improve. If it works, great, do it more. And so building that muscle memory of doing that, and then doing that through innovation is also has to be protected. So you have to give the protection to people to fail. You have to empower them to break some glass. You have to take that as the CEO as a priority to make that happen. So because naturally people will be afraid to try and fail in a big organization. And so that's what's great thing about entrepreneurs that come from the outside. They're not afraid to break and change things. But you, in a big organization, you also want to empower everybody to be willing to try and then reward failure sometimes because they tried. And even if it didn't work, that's okay. It's better than not trying. And so I think that's really important is to take that and build that into your compensation, into your metrics, into your evaluations, and then role model it as the leader so that your leaders do that, and so on and so forth.
Actually, I think that advice, it should be to everyone, right? Because when it comes to education, which is the experience that we have as makers, we face that even younger kids have this like sensation to failure, right? So I think it's really good advice for everyone, right? And I wanted to move to one interesting question for me. Like, in your opinion, what are the key challenges that industries face when it comes to scaling commercialization innovation, right?
Sure. I mean, I think that's a great question, because a lot of people, they rapidly prototype. I mean, I graduated from Fab Academy last year, so that was like my personal growth. I went out and did it. Thank you. It's it was very cool, but doing homework again after 20 years, not so cool. By the way, you get used to. But it was a great experience, and it's so much fun to prototype, to think up something and make it. And then you want to take that and you say, okay, well, now I want to actually produce it. I want to get it in people's hands. So I just made one. Now I want to make 20, right? And then I got the 20 made, and it's probably not the best cost, and I made some not more sufficient decisions, but that was successful. Now I want to make 500, okay? Now I want to make 1,000. Now I want to make 10,000. And each one time you make that step, you're going to find new challenges. And a lot of people say, oh, you know, entrepreneurs can reach a certain level and then you need to bring in management. I'm not a big believer in that. I think people can scale with their companies. You see some of the biggest companies in the world are still led by their founders. I think the challenge is to putting in place the scaling, the scaffolding or the basis to be able to scale from the beginning. And so that means making sure that when you think about how you design the product, you design it in a way maybe that's easy to manufacture. Okay, so what components do you choose? Are those hard to get or are those easy to get? How are you doing your connectors? Are those easy to do or are those hard to do? How are you choosing your suppliers? How are you then, how are you measuring your business? Is it just how much money you have in the bank? That's usually a big problem, because that's a rear viewing view of the business. You only know if how you did is after you have all the money in the bank and you paid everybody. But you need to, you can't change it at that point. But if you actually manage your business based on what you're doing today, how many units did I produce today? How many things did I order today? How many of them passed my quality inspection? Do I have a quality inspection? How many of them pass a second time? Then I can start understanding, oh, I'm in the middle of production and I'm probably not going to make money because I'm failing in my tests too many times. Before I buy another 500 units, let me fix that first, right? And so starting to understand what drives your business, measure it, and then act on it before you're done, before the money comes in, before you finish the transaction, is going to be very important for you to be able to drive the business and not let the business drive and you're waiting on the side saying what happened. Did it go okay or not? So I think when people bring that culture with them, they can scale with the business. And so for me, those are kind of that planning we talked about earlier, and then putting in place the metrics so you're actually driving the business. You're not letting the business drive and you're kind of looking at it from afar afterwards, what happened.
Actually, I really, really enjoy it. And I think for a lot of people who create things, and even for our daily lives, we forgot this part, right? And I think your expertise is absolutely amazing for even I take it as an advice, right? With what we do, and I hope everyone who's listening, it's going to take it as some reflection to take home, right? To just think about it and trying to do better things all the time, right? So I think to wrap up, we want to ask for you some advice, right, Diego?
Yeah, because the things you share with us is amazing. I think everyone needs to think about that, because in some moments you need to work with a project, or you create an initiative, you create something new, and other people is going to use that possible. And so you don't think in these options so everyone can use that easily and not have big connection complex to the microcontroller, and now nobody gonna use that because it's so complex. And also this part of things that for me is very powerful to think about that. And I think you can share your advice to aspiring to entrepreneurs and innovation scaling, looking for two landscapes.
Yeah, and I think nowadays when it comes to like the landscape of tech, which is rapidly evolving, right? So I think it's really interesting to know your perception about it.
I mean, I think I'll recap because I put some of that advice for our other conversation. One is have an aspiration. So don't be afraid to have a big dream, but don't leave that big dream alone. You need to have some steps to get there. And then, okay, so now I know what I want to do more or less to this year, next year, the year after. Okay, now let me get very specific at what I need to get done this year. So that's number one, have a really good plan. Number two, have your metrics, understand your business. This is going to take some time. Understand what drives your business, right? And you need to do that by actually the manufacturing of your business and understanding how production, but also talk to people. Talk to your customers. Talk to your employees if you have employees. Talk to your suppliers if you have suppliers. Talk to your family. Talk to anybody who will be willing to talk to you about the product or your service and get their feedback. Not all the feedback, feedback is like a gift. You can take it or you can leave it. You don't have to take all the feedback, but you can listen to it, right? And then decide which one you want to incorporate. And so get that feedback and get that idea of understand how and what metric drives your business. And the minute you move off of rapid prototyping or prototyping into production at any level, start measuring. Have metrics, even if it's simple metrics. Simple metrics are the best ones, right? And then finally, I think you want to make sure that throughout this process, you keep an eye on costs. And I gave that in my speech at the Fab session on Monday. I said, your cost is like a wheelbarrow that connected, or a cart that you have a rope connected to, and you're carrying as you're walking. And when you put things in it, you're running, you're starting to run, you're starting to produce, and now you need an IT system, or you need a CRM, or you need a website, or you need a production. I don't know what you do in podcasts, but I'm sure you buy something. You need an accounting system. You need all kinds of marketing systems. And you're making choices. Those choices have a cost. And so think about it as things you're putting in your cart. Now, sometimes you're running so fast, you don't have time to maybe make the best decision or the most frugal, the most cost-effective decision. Or maybe now what was good for you before is maybe you can get a better deal, but you're so busy you don't want to deal with it. And so you're just going to leave that because you're busy with other things. And so those things in the cart pile up, and that cart gets heavier and heavier. But you're running, and when you run and you pull something heavy, that's okay, right? It's kind of running with you, there's momentum. And as long as you keep running and you keep growing, that revenue that's coming in is going to mask if you have an inefficient cost structure. Because you're going to have more revenue, and your cost is usually a little delayed, and so you're kind of look like everything's fine. But then when you slow down or you stop, right? You suddenly slow down. Now you have a rope, and you have a very heavy thing going behind you with momentum. What happens when you stop? Does that thing stop? No, that thing keeps going, and it's going to hit you. And when things slow down, you want to have time. You want to have time to pivot. You want to have time maybe to let the economy, maybe the issue is not you, it's the economy. So you just want to let the economy recover. Maybe it's you need to pivot, you need to change. But the bigger and the more garbage you have in that truck, the less time you're going to have to pivot and recover. And when that hits you, then they usually have to call somebody like me to come fix it, right? And so we don't want that. We want to have that you're running and that thing is light, and it's light as you can, and when you slow down, that slows down with you, right? And so that would be my big advice for folks.
Oh my God, thank you so much. I really love the example, and it leaves this perception, right? Because sometimes we don't look to the bigger picture, right? We don't look what decision are we making as an entrepreneur, or maybe someone who's making things in general. So actually, I really enjoyed this conversation. Yeah.
Dan, thank you to be here. You shared something very important thing for all the community, because this is going to work for everyone to manage his projects, to create something new, or see his organization and see how he can do something different or innovate in scaling.
Yeah, and I think that comes to the end to the episode today. But thank you so much for for your time, for joining us. Thank you to the listeners. I hope you enjoy it. And again, stay tuned for the next episodes. And until then, keep innovating and creating, right, Diego?
See you in the next time.